Hello, welcome to our presentation of our assignment of International Strategic Alliances. We are group 6.3 and my name is Freek.
I am Wiebe.
And I'm Simon.
We are going to discuss the following two articles. The first one of Gulati and the second one of Oxley. We will start with the transaction cost theory, the governance modes, then we'll talk about the articles and compare those, and then we'll answer the central question with the help of a continuum. First, the transaction cost theory. The transaction cost theory is defined as a theory accounting for the actual cost of outsourcing production of products or services, including transaction cost, coordination cost, contracting cost, and search cost. The inclusion of all costs are considered when making a decision and not just the market prices. This was in the first lecture explained as the make versus buy decision. The main transaction costs in the alliance context are writing the contract, monitoring contractual performance, enforcing contractual promises, and addressing breaches of contractual promises. The main goal of these contracts is to limit and prevent opportunistic behavior, which is defined as an act or behavior of partnership motivated by the maximization of economic self-interest and occasioned loss of the other partners. For example, holding back information or in general not meeting the specified agreements. According to Gulati, firms select contractual forms for their alliances on the basis of not only the activities they include, but also the existence and frequency of prior ties with a partner. The span of the transaction cost theory is thus somewhat limited. The main criticism of Gulati is that the transaction cost theory does not consider former ties of partners in determining the governance mode, whereas the main criticism of Oxley is that the transaction cost theory excluded the institutional environment as a point of critique. And now Timon will tell you something about the governance mode.
We'll first discuss the market governance mode, which is also known as the arm's length transaction. In this transaction, the buyers and sellers of a product act independently and have no relationship to each other. For example, one of you buying a television. You are searching for the best price. However, you are barely interested in the fate of the store. So both parties pursue their own interests. Second, the non-equity alliance. This is unidirectional agreement in which no equity is shared or exchanged. Furthermore, no new organizational identity is created. Examples are licensing, distribution agreements, or technology exchange agreements. In practice, this could entail asking a manufacturer to create a computer chip for your new product. In a situation where the transaction costs between two parties are too high to justify a non-equity alliance, companies will prefer an equity alliance. An equity alliance involves the sharing or exchange of equity. This can occur in two forms. Either an equity joint venture, which is a new and independent jointly owned entity, or a minority equity position, where one firm takes a stake in the other firm. The former can result in a mutual hostage situation, where opportunistic behavior by one of the partners would negatively affect them both. On the opposite side of the make or buy decision is the hierarchy governance mode. This form of governance is characterized by complete integration of the two firms. Every entity in the organization, except one, is subordinate to a single other entity. The governance method is effective to almost completely eradicate opportunistic behavior and is the dominant governance structure in most large firms. And now we will take the floor to compare both articles.
According to Gulati, transaction costs are influenced by, first of all, interfirm trust. In this context, we conceive trust as a type of expectation that alleviates the fear that one's exchange partner will act opportunistically. According to Gulati, The level of inter-firm trust is mainly determined by the number of previous alliances between the partners and the governance mode of the previous alliances. Once parties have already formed multiple equity corporations, these alliances will result in mutual awareness. They know what to expect from their partner, and this enhances trust and reduces the need for a specified contract. Furthermore, alliances are more likely to be equity-based if they are among firms of a different nation, because reputational consequences of opportunistic behavior are greater in a domestic context. A special case of an alliance is when there is a joint R&D component involved. A joint R&D component fosters the exchange of information, which increases the transaction cost burden. Shared equity can align those interests of partners and limit opportunistic behavior by focusing attention on their equity stake in the alliance. Those possibilities for opportunistic behavior in turn are decreased when strong intellectual property protections are in place, which is mentioned in the article of Oxley. In this article, he links intellectual property rights protection to appropriability hazards, where a lower level of protection leads to higher appropriability right hazards, and examples of those hazards are, for example, technology leakage or differences in applicating for protection. Like in the US, it is first to invent, and in the EU, it's first to file. Oxley, in his article, links the degree of appropriability hazards to governance modes. Greater hazards will result in a larger need for a specified contract, which would lead to an equity alliance. The main goal of this article was to find the relationship between governance modes and institutional environmental variables. Oxley also used institutional variables like cultural distance, education, GNP growth, and the rank in the Euromoney's country risk rating, however failed to find any significant relationships. He did find one remarkable result, because, according to Oxley, the number of previous alliances structured as an equity joint venture results into a higher probability that the next alliance will also be structured in the same way. However, Gulati finds the opposite effect. He thinks it will lead to a non-equity alliance because there is more trust. Based on the previous slide, we have constructed a continuum where at the utmost left the transaction costs are minimal, and at the right hand side the transaction costs are the highest. So now that we have elaborated the main findings and implications of both articles, we will try to answer the central question. And this question, as you can see on the screen right now, is: how does transaction cost theory explain the choice for governance modes? When we look at our continuum, we see that the choice for governance modes is determined by a couple of variables. Gulati emphasizes mainly the importance of inter-firm trust to lower transaction cost, which will lower the need for an equity alliance, and also whether or not partners in the alliance originate from different countries. Oxley links the governance mode to appropriability hazards, where greater hazards result in larger transaction cost and a shift to the right on our own constructed market hierarchy continuum. This marks the end of our presentation. We hope that you've learned a lot during this presentation, and we will see you all in class on Wednesday. Thank you very much.